This session is part of a webinar series which aims to assist researchers, librarians, and institutions in the adoption of digital tools and persistent identifiers for a significant increase of research discoverability globally and to increase efficiency in scholarly workflows.
Yes, okay. So yeah, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Harold Boa. I am the Business Development Officer at Ubuntu Net Alliance. Currently, we're one of the repositories where Africa Archive is hosted. And this is something we're doing with access to perspectives. One of the activities we're doing right now is a webinar series, an open science webinar series, of which this webinar is a part of. And it is funded by the OK Global Access Fund. We've had several webinars already. The links will be shared to the recordings for those webinars, and just as well, the recording for this webinar will also be shared afterwards, and all the necessary materials. So today, yeah, Ebuka has shared the link to the webinar series, the ones that we have had. And also, that should probably lead you also to the page where you can also see the other webinars that are coming up ahead. But we'll obviously remind you for those. So today we are going to be discussing the topic building public digital infrastructure that enables African communities to publish documents and data more effectively. We are joined today by two individuals. The first one is Emily Esten. Forgive me if I slightly butcher the names, but Emily is here with us today, and she's very welcome. In the way of introduction, she is the Customer Success Manager at Knowledge Futures. As the DocMaps project lead, Esten helped increase in preprints, preview visibility, and make it easier for platforms to provide and share rich information about the evaluative process a paper has undergone. In their varied work experience, from project lead to project curator, educator, to site manager, Esten has played an active role in shaping collaborations, training, and programming around digital tools from scholarly communication. Preprint articles are rapidly becoming the first line of contact for cutting-edge science, the opportunity for researchers to move more quickly by building on extremely recent discoveries that have not gone through journal processes is debased by an equally fast rise in untrustworthy science generated by disreputable journals and artificial intelligence, sorry. DocMaps is a community-endorsed framework for capturing valuable context about the processes used to create documents in a machine-readable way. Esten will discuss how DocMaps can improve the interoperability around preprint science and enable rapid, trustworthy discovery and reporting. And we're also fortunate to be joined by Dawit Tegbaru today as well, who will be our second speaker. And Dawit is the Director of Community Publishing Services at Knowledge Futures Group, where he plays a pivotal role in helping communities establish robust publishing workflows and high-quality outputs with editorial production and content enrichment services. Drawing from his extensive experience in managing publications for various societies, Dawit is deeply committed to advocacy and inclusivity in scholarly communities. He works with a dedicated team to develop innovative tech services and strategic partnerships that promote equitable knowledge exchange and help shape the landscape of academic publishing. So our presenters today will be focusing on two things. The first thing is fostering trust through interoperable preprint review metadata with DocMaps. And the second thing is supporting African scholarship on PubPub. So we'll hand the floor over to our presenters, and then after they present, we'll go through some questions with them, and then we'll also open the floor to our participants to engage as well, because it's definitely a collaborative webinar. So yes, without wasting much of your time, Dawit and Emily, over to you guys.
Great. Thank you, Harold, so much for your introduction. And the team for facilitating this conversation. I'm going to jump in just to kind of highlight, you know, a little bit more about Knowledge Features Group, especially our platform, our publishing platform, PubPub. And I think before we dive into some of the specifics around the infrastructure and our services, I did want to take a moment to just say on behalf of the Knowledge Features team, our hearts go out to the Kenyatta University community and many of those who were affected by the tragic accident that occurred earlier this week. We extend our deepest condolences to the families who lost their loved ones. And our thoughts are also with many of those who are injured in fighting to recover. So with that being said, you know, the PubPub platform, or our approach in terms of empowering African scholarship on PubPub, I think is evident, or most evident, by our platform ethos, as well as our service offerings and our desire to continue to engage with communities in a variety of mediums. This is one example. But I would say, starting with the platform ethos, from its inception, PubPub has really been committed to being an open source, community-led, end-to-end publishing platform. And central to our identity is the idea of being community-led. And so if we kind of drill down a bit deeper into this idea of being community-led, or what it means, for us, we like to think that our product, or PubPub as the product and the services that complement it, is informed by the diverse and growing group of communities, scholarly communities who use PubPub. PubPub, of course, is a tool that we like to make widely available so that communities can redefine publishing practices for themselves, as they are most closely linked to the sources of knowledge and the audiences that they intend to reach. For us, we like to call this making information useful. And we believe this is an iterative process where we're developing, again, both the technology, engaging with partners, offering services to supplement. Underlying this ethos of the platform, we believe that the future of publishing must be scholarly led and very much representative of the global knowledge that is available. And this is especially true considering the talent of our resilient brothers and sisters throughout the continent of Africa. And so again, PubPub is a tool. And of course, our hope is that with the adequate engagement, you know, the spirit behind our platform continues to align with the needs of many dynamic publishing communities in Africa and beyond. And so for us, there has been, again, from the beginning, and continues to be, a strong use case for providing and developing infrastructure that lowers the barrier of entry and also offers publishing solutions that rival commercial options, which tend to take ownership and ingenuity away from the sources of knowledge.
And to add on to Dawit's point of where DocMaps fits into this, is one of the things Knowledge Features has been being community-led is also being able to work alongside communities and be able to respond to what scholars need in a particular moment. And so DocMaps comes out of collaboration with multiple organizations to think about, like, what do we actually need in order to address the changes that are happening in scholarly communication and be able to support all these different processes and ideas for being able to review, to share, and to capture metadata around this while making that information useful to both the people and the platforms who both would value from it.
I'm happy to highlight some of our services or the solutions that we've kind of developed over time with community input, but also would love, if we'd like to kind of have open discussion, if there are questions from the audience, or Harold, if you have specific questions that you'd like us to or topics that you'd like us to kind of emphasize further, we're very flexible to the approach here.
Yeah, sure, we can go right ahead into that. So firstly, in the way of questions to lead the discussion today, how does the Knowledge Features Group envision leveraging digital infrastructure to empower African communities in effectively publishing documents and data?
I think, well, I'm going to let Emily dive in here because I think preprints play a significant role with African the science and scholarly dissemination. And there's been quite innovative work around doc maps, and it is a new concept that I think more people need to be aware of. I'll also discuss some of our services in more detail. But Emily, would you like to just jump in here?
Yeah, for sure. So assuming that we have a basis of understanding preprint articles. So preprints being this initial publication of a document. So it hasn't necessarily moved through a journal process, it's being hosted in various preprint servers. But one of the things that's really exciting about preprint community is that this is happening on lots of different platforms. So preprints are being served in one place. We have preprint reviews that are being posted in other places. And then we have aggregators that are pulling some of that information together. So people can discover this research and respond to it in lots of different places. But the difficult thing for a scholar is that scholars are already doing research, they're already trying to publish their research and get that out there. They don't also have the time to be checking dozens, if not hundreds of different places to find out where this is. And so DocMaps is trying to address this way of, yes, we want all of these spaces to thrive. They're all really important to being able to having a scholarly community. And we need a way to be able to share information effectively so that people can find that kind of content, whether that is find the preprint, find the review, find their contributions to this process to be credited. So DocMaps helps store and transfer that metadata across these different platforms and better inform readers towards research quality, their verification, the editorial history. So you can see it was posted on this server. There was a review over here. If you wanted to follow up and go see the review on that platform, you're being able to both highlight this is the community and where it's taking place. These are the scholars that participated in that conversation. And then later, if that preprint is updated based on the comments and conversation, that's all there, as opposed to the traditional journal process where a lot of that is not hidden behind the scenes, but it's not necessarily transparent to scholars in a general way. So yeah, this infrastructure is helping to both, connect and show the connections between these various platforms, and also make our scholarship better by being able to share that and do it out in the open.
Yeah, and just to piggyback.
Go ahead, Dawit.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to clarify on what Emily has said to just make sure that we're getting everything proper here. So basically, DocMaps is like a platform that helps researchers use other platforms. Is that correct?
Kind of. So DocMaps, we like to call it as a schema, right? It's just a way of structuring all of that data, and be able to connect to these different platforms and share it across. So yes, part of that.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Dawit.
Yeah, I was going to piggyback on the concept of this discoverability. I think, the schema that Emily was talking about through DocMaps is, ultimately the goal is to make the research more discoverable, more interoperable with distributed publishing, models out there. And so alongside that, we have services, and we have a host of different things that we offer that supports the publishing that happens on PubPub. For example, the community design work, content production, copy editing, video production, audio as well. And so I wanted to highlight the audio component here because I think discoverability in that context is extremely important. For all publishing communities, discoverability is critical, but it's even more essential when you think about accessibility. And there's text to audio that we provide that I think satisfies both of those needs of discoverability and accessibility. And I think that what we've seen within the last year and a half, there is a significant demand from our partners who are utilizing our services for this particular enhancement, again, the text to audio. And I think initially the key motivation for us in providing this service or developing this service was to ensure that we're able to support scholarly content from a variety of languages. And so our audio supports 70+ languages at the moment. In context of the continent of Africa, the text audio service provides or covers Afrikaans, Swahili, Arabic, French, and Zulu. Of course, that is there are so many other languages throughout the continent, and we hope to extend the reach beyond the languages that are currently supported. But I think ultimately, this motivation was based on some of the observations we've had with the work that Africa Archive is doing, a really important work, which is promoting research that's published in local languages. And so, again, we'd like to explore more opportunities for extending this type of service in ways that complement the efforts that are already underway.
Yes. Wow, that's very, very impressive. I mean, especially the fact that it's covering so many languages in Africa and such major languages as Afrikaans. And it somewhat segues into one of the next questions that I had, which can lead the conversation as well, which is what are the tools that you can highlight that Knowledge Features Groups has developed to help document the data publishing and also improve the publishing of research in African context. And I think the audio tool is quite impressive, I'm not gonna lie, and worth noting as you have already done, Dawit. But are there any other tools as well that you'd like to highlight?
Well, I think PubPub, I mean, it has key features that, again, are useful for authoring and disseminating scholarship. I think it's important to just highlight the ease of using the platform to define your publishing workflow. It's very flexible in terms of the content types. So there's you have standalone articles that are supported. There's the ability to import audio, video. One of the services, again, I mentioned earlier, is we support the development of video summaries. And so our team helps curate technical content and makes it more accessible for the general society. And I think that is the goal when it comes to science and scholarship, is to kind of bridge the application between the technical and the societal benefits. But again, I think the audio side of things is really important, and also understanding the multimodal approach to publishing, the importance of it. I think there's been a lot of excitement and I think hype around artificial intelligence, and there's no doubt that AI will have impacts on the future of knowledge. And at the same time, unfortunately, there are information biases that are already kind of revealed within the large language model training. There's sources of knowledge that are kind of neglected, as well as just false understanding of the existing knowledge that's out there. And so, we just want to encourage, again, as a platform, we don't own the knowledge. We don't anticipate trying to take ownership in how knowledge is created. We just want to empower the communities. And so this is a time, it's critical, and particularly for the folks in Africa, to just to be more intentional about publishing in multiple formats, and to raise awareness about the tools and solutions that are available that can facilitate publishing in multiple formats. Emily briefly mentioned the machine readable nature of understanding the stages of scholarship, and so those behind the scenes metadata and again, the machine readable information, and also now audio, video, all those things are being aggregated. And so it's important that it's not, the research that is disseminated is not just based on text, but also incorporates the language and the audio, the video that people in the future will be able to take advantage of.
Yeah. Emily, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, and when it comes to doc maps, what we've been working on is sort of this two-pronged approach of being able to talk to platforms and then being able to talk to users more generally, of being able to be involved in preprint reviews. So in preparing to talk to platforms, we've put together a lot of technical documentation around doc maps. So a software development kit that shows how a platform can produce and consume doc maps. We've also put together some specifications for API. Great, you have all of this in your schema. How is it being shared with somebody else? And then we've been playing around with different visualizations, right? There's lots of ways to visualize this metadata in a way that's both machine readable and human readable. And so I can drop this in the chat in a moment, but we've tested out a couple of different visualizations across platforms of just showing, right, how do we make sure people are getting the information they actually want to know around who has reviewed this, what does a review mean in this context. So those are the tools that we've been working on at the moment to be able to make doc maps both a reality and human readable.
Wow, I was expecting to see an emoji in the chat of people clapping, because I mean, very, very impressive stuff. I mean, talk about leveraging all the learning tools that we have these days. The power of video, it cannot be understated. It makes everything so much easier to understand, and it's a way of making complex concepts made easier to understand for everybody. So I think that's very impressive. Wow. And perhaps before we go on, there's a question in the chat that I think is actually important, from Joe. She says, apologies if I missed this. What is the relation between doc maps and PubPub? Will doc maps be, or is it already, the backbone of PubPub to optimize machine readability? That's another question, follow-up. Or as to a separate project. I think she meant, or as a separate project. So maybe before we go into the next question, maybe just for clarity as well, I think that it can shape the understanding of the next questions.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, right, doc maps is a separate project within Knowledge Features, and it's a Knowledge Features stewards the project, and we have several collaborators who are actively involved in that process. At the moment, it still operates as a separate project within the company. I think we've talked about ways of getting it into PubPub and figuring out the best way to make it work. So at present, it's not part of it, but it is an operation in other places. And our hope has sort of been having tested it in these sort of pilot environments and being able to figure out what's the best way to implement this within the current infrastructure and being able to support the communities that we have. So we've been able to test it elsewhere. We have a couple of our communities who have been involved with it through other partners, but it's not part of our current technical infrastructure at the moment.
Wow. So right now, doc maps it's some, like the link that you've just explained with PubPub, and you stated that it has been tested with other similar platforms like PubPub. Do you have any examples of that? Like, can it integrate with also other platforms, or is that something that's still in the workings?
Yeah, so currently Kotahi, which is a platform for publishing similar to PubPub, they have it integrated within their platform, and they share doc maps to Society and eLife, which are two aggregators for preprint reviews. And then we have other aggregators like Europe PubMed Central that actually pulls all of those doc maps that exist within Society and within EMBO and pulls those in and just plays them everywhere. So there are a couple places actively that do that work, and then there are a couple more that I can't mention here, but that are working towards the process.
Okay, and yeah, thank you for putting that in the chat as well. So please, guys, feel free to view that and also get a feel of that. And yes, for everybody in the audience, please feel free to participate. You can type in your questions and we're gonna get to them. But for now, I think let's move on to then look at some key considerations in designing digital infrastructure solutions to ensure they're accessible and relevant to diverse African communities. So I think that's the next question that we can go into. I don't know if you got that, or I should repeat it. What are some key considerations in designing digital infrastructure solutions to ensure that the digital infrastructure solutions, are accessible and relevant to diverse African communities?
I think the goal, again, being community-led here, is to continuously partner with groups who are motivated to make information useful. Our hope is, with our expertise, we can bridge the technology and with the scholarship in ways that is most relevant to the communities that are, again, generating the knowledge and understanding their audiences. As of late, we've put significant resources towards kind of a novel design sprint strategy. And basically, it provides lots of flexibility for our team and other groups to ideate together in developing, again, innovative publishing solutions, as opposed to committing to a large feature enhancement that may work for some communities, but not most. And so that's kind of, when you look at it from a development engineering standpoint, there's always that tension of, where are the priorities, what's the use case, how does it benefit the most or the vast number of communities that are using PubPub. So again, this design sprint strategy allows us to test ideas out, to mock up potential solutions and meet unique community needs. And so we are absolutely interested in working with folks who are interested in reshaping the future of publishing, regardless of whether they are funders, university libraries, nonprofit publishers, research groups. At the end of the day, we are finding that there are more opportunities to go beyond the current offerings on PubPub and recognize the innovation that is happening at the local level, and designing, again, together collaboratively these solutions. And I think that the groups that we especially want to work with in this context are those who are committed to advancing African scholarship. And of course, if there are folks who are looking to partner with us in this design sprint framework, you can just reach out to us through email at hello@pubpub.org. I think that is kind of going back to our platform, but also understanding how we decide on how to make the platform for the future more relevant to communities.
Emily, do you have anything to add on that?
I think the thing that I would add is right, extensibility is being really important. The kind of things that we build, we want to have this core foundation that we can build off of and extend depending on the needs of the communities, right? We have this process in place that allows us to be really flexible and add things over time, but we also have tech that is flexible and allows us to build and make changes and, right, address the kinds of needs in a way that, right, we want our infrastructure to be responsive to what's happening or what particular community needs at a given moment.
Yes, definitely. I mean, both your responses are quite informative, and they somewhat also segue into what we're going to discuss next, which is how you're collaborating with the African communities to try and ensure that your mission is basically successful. Like you mentioned, that it's important to get their buy-in, so that since they're the ones who are using it, I mean, you need to tailor it to their needs, and et cetera, et cetera. And that there are different stakeholders. There are governments, there are NGOs, and maybe even there are some platforms that are similar to PubPub that will maybe want to utilize such a product or such a tool as doc maps. So in those specific cases, what are some of the I don't want to say initiatives, but then how does that go in collaborating with these different stakeholders to ensure that you are able to tailor your service to the African community?
Emily, do you want to dive in here, or I can give a services perspective?
Yeah, why don't you start with the services perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So we, in terms of initiatives, we've long recognized, and as part of our mission is to make, knowledge exchange more equitable. We've recognized that there's opportunities to help various communities start up and scale. And, as part of our own kind of recognition of kind of the imbalance in terms of the knowledge exchange and opportunities and communities that are represented, we've developed a pro bono program to help, again, the communities launch on PubPub. In fact, Africa Archive is certainly one example early on in terms of the launch on PubPub and our team supporting with time and efforts there. PhD Career Stories is another example also. But the goal is to recognize the ways that we can help. There's the pro bono services, there's service discounts as well that we offer communities. But I think ultimately the idea is to collaborate with like-minded groups who are, again, working in lockstep with us and with other communities in this space to make the knowledge more useful, to advance the technology when it comes to, again, bridging the tech and scholarship and recognizing the influence of the communities themselves as the leaders of scholarship.
Okay. Emily, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think with doc maps, right, as I mentioned before, sort of having this community governance part and working specifically within like that middle layer of aggregators, so the people who are or the platforms that are pulling all of this together. One of the things that community approach has allowed us to do is be able to take on lots of smaller collaborators who don't necessarily always have the technical infrastructure to do this. And so, for example, we have 5 organizations that are actively part of this DocMaps collaboration, but we have 14 smaller organizations that are able to have DocMaps created as part of this process. So their data is being shared without them having to have that initial have that initial infrastructure startup, right? And so in the future, they're already part of this conversation, they're already part of the community, and we can help them build towards that technical infrastructure along the way. And so I think, right, it goes back to that idea of helping a community sort of thrive and build in that way. And that's been our collaborative approach there. I was trying to see if we have any specific African communities or peer review communities that have been part of it. I haven't dove in specifically, but I think one of the things that's been really helpful is that we've been participating in lots of these preprint review conversations and being able to talk with lots of platforms along the way, and having this diversity around language, having this diversity around what is not necessarily what is considered scholarship, but what the sort of requirements of peer review looks like, or what sort of things they would want to highlight. And that's been able to be incorporated as part of, right, just being able to have conversation along the way, and being able to do that alongside our technology has been really helpful.
Yeah, I think one of the leading constraints when it comes to African adoption of pretty much a lot of things is the cost itself, which is something that I think you have touched in terms of the discounts and also, yeah. So, yes, I mean, it's true. My general wondering now perhaps is for an organization, which wants to make use of such a tool. Is it something that it can only make use of through PubPub? Because there are all these organizations, for example, they have their own digital repositories and stuff like that. Is there a plan in the future, or is it already currently the case that DocMaps can be is interoperable enough to be encompassed into their own repository? If you get my question.
I think so. And I think the answer to your question is absolutely not. Our goal is not, you can only use PubPub to participate in this particular thing. We've, even at the moment, we are not actively using it. We're working with other people who are using it to have that conversation. And I think when we're in those spaces, we want to build something that is useful for other people, not just for PubPub. And that's ultimately as Dawit mentioned earlier, our goal is to make knowledge useful, and knowledge useful isn't always necessarily using our platform, but it's building the kinds of technologies or processes that help make that happen in other places. So no, I would want to make sure DocMaps is in use in other places and people are actively using it and building on it, iterating on it. That's what open source means, and that's what ultimately makes better products for the people who use them.
Let's go into the chat a little bit. So there are several questions from Joe. The first one says, please share a few details about PubPub as we use it for Africa Archive. Also mentioning other communities that use it for that purpose. For what purposes, rather? What are the next steps in developing PubPub further? Do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, just for the folks who may not be familiar with PubPub, I would say, again, the idea is with PubPub, and it has been since its inception, is to provide a flexible, community-led publishing workflow, or to support it with the infrastructure. And so, we have features that are, I think, pretty useful when it comes to bringing different authors and editors and reviewers from all over the world together in a very simple to use intuitive editor. And so you're able to collaborate in real time without having to worry about saving your content to your desktop. You can share view links and edit links. So everyone is able to kind of stay in the loop of what's going on with the progress of an article. PubPub also has the industry standard features in terms of DOI support, and which is important in terms of discoverability. You're able to access your dashboard and see who's accessing or who's interacting with your community, and kind of see it at different scopes. And you can see demographics and page views, and you can kind of drill down between the higher level community data or analytics, as well as kind of focusing more on specific collections or individual publications to kind of see what those interactions have been like. And so, we think that, there's so many other features that the PubPub offers, but the idea really is to provide a best publishing.
I'm just listening the webinar.
That makes it easy for folks to edit text, to embed media, share media, discuss conversations around the science with annotations, and of course, the ability to easily import content from other file types like Word, and LaTeX, XML, and also export similar types of files from PubPub and share, like auto-generated PDFs as an example.
And she goes on as well to ask, how do you see the products and services that Knowledge Future Group develops tie in with other systems and services to ensure data sovereignty and affordability of scholarly infrastructure?
I think kind of behind the scenes, we want to make it easy for communities to utilize the platform without having to have expertise in code and XML and some of kind of the nuts and bolts of publishing. But I think inherent in the platform and the content, the articles that are developed in the platform, you have the ability to extract, again, XML, which is kind of the gold standard in making scholarly material available and interoperable with other versions like HTML and PDF. You're able to kind of export different outputs from XML. So that's kind of the underlying structure behind PubPub that's available. Just with a click of a button, you can auto-generate that. But I also think that the platform itself is making it possible to also define what your workflow is. And that's some of the work that we're doing now. We have kind of the standard use case where people can publish journals, ebooks. They can have more flexible kind of podcast or audio based publication or video based publications. But the goal, I think, now is to figure out ways to integrate with other systems. And so, we're kind of developing that. But absolutely, the idea is to support a distributed model. It's not to have everything published on PubPub. We recognize there are other tools out there, and we're trying to find ways to make those connections more intuitive going forward. And as part of that, it's important for us to kind of work directly with the communities to kind of understand what are the different spaces that we can support with the technology and such.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's a very good point you make there. I think even for the future benefits to unlock themselves, definitely a collaborative effort is needed, whereby, Doc Maps is able to integrate on the wider community itself. But of course, that's part of the future. I mean, wow, I feel very educated. I'm pretty sure everyone in the chat also, I mean, in the audience also feels very educated. And let's see, let's have a look if we have any more questions here. Well, thank you for sharing those resources, Ebuka. So Ebuka has shared in the chat some resources about the webinar series and how you can also register, and about the ORCID Global Participation Program. So please have a look at that. It appears that there are no other questions in the chat. I think.
Yeah, Harold, I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have one. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Dawit, and thank you, Emily, for coming as guests to our webinar. So my question is this: with PubPub now, are there or is there a particular location in Africa in which you'd say you've gotten the highest number of reach, and then what are your plans in getting to other areas where you haven't gotten as much of such reach?
It's a great question. I think, our team we're a small but mighty team, and we've mostly focused on kind of understanding our community of users to further develop the platform. As I mentioned earlier, our kind of central identity is community-led, publishing and developing features and even services that are mostly representative of kind of the interactions that we've had with our users. In the past, we've had info sessions. We have our newsletter. We have a forum where we're able to kind of have a dialogue, two-way dialogue. So we're able to understand the communities and the needs and kind of deepen our reach. In terms of what our current reach in Africa is, I would say our best advocate and partner in this space, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Emily, but from my standpoint is Africa Archive. The community, which is a great example because Africa Archive adopts a distributed publishing model. There's the use of PubPub, but then there's also many other tools within the ecosystem, the publishing ecosystem that Africa Archive uses. And so, I think, again, Africa Archive is probably our best example of a group that is advocating locally and connected with across the continent. And we're hopeful. We want to have, as I mentioned, adequate engagement so that we're able to support. The platform itself is free to use, and I think we've been very clear and communicating that. We don't have a major marketing strategy to get folks to adopt the platform, but we also are very confident, and we've seen significant growth in the number of communities. There are over 3,000 communities who are using PubPub, many of which are independently using the platform and have been doing so for several years. So our hope is that with the the features that we're able to provide that is relevant to the communities, the integrations that we're thinking about in terms of connecting the platform with other third-party tools, the development of doc maps, the conversations, we're able to connect with, again, groups who are motivated to collaborate with us in building the technology for the future.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that question, Ebuka. That was a very good question. We have another question as well from Melba in the chat. She says, you spoke about being about to publish. Is it limited to specific subject areas or it is all inclusive? Does that make sense? Or should Melba unmute and ask the question?
I think I understood,
No,
but like I missed, there was one question, please.
Okay. Should I come again, Dawit? Okay, go ahead.
No, I think you. Thank you. You were very clear. I think I just want to understand, like, if one wants to publish, is there a limitation to maybe specific subject area that you only collect articles or content on, or is it all inclusive? Or yeah.
Thank you, Melba, for your question. Yeah, so PubPub is, so Knowledge Features Group PubPub, we're not the publisher. We're a public digital infrastructure provider, which means we are developing a platform, offering the platform to enable folks to publish. There is no limitation. We don't dictate the disciplines that are supported. Anyone at any time can go to pubpub.org and create a community. You need an account. You just log in or register. All of this is free. There's no credit card information that's necessary. But the idea is that there is a high quality publication or workflows that are being developed using the platform, and that there's some engagement with the Knowledge Features team on, making the platform more useful, and if and when there are gaps in that process. But at the moment, PubPub is very well represented by disciplines across the board. And there's no royalty split or anything like that. The communities essentially own their content. We don't own anything. We just provide the platform, and we have a membership program that helps us keep the lights on in terms of just supporting open source publishing, which is what PubPub is based on. And then again, I mentioned earlier our services, which kind of takes the publishing process to the next level. If you have a team who doesn't have the bandwidth or the expertise to to do some of the production or editorial tasks, or even the content enrichment services that I mentioned earlier, we can come alongside any team and provide those services as well. But the platform itself, the features, the ability to publish is not restricted in any way.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, thank you so much for your question, and thank you for that answer as well, Dawit. So if you have any question, you can get it in the chat now. I think whilst we're waiting, if there are any other questions, I think in the way of let's see, that it appears it's another. Okay. In the way of before we close, maybe there's some some final call to actions and some final one message that you would like that the audience should take away from today. I think we can start with you, Emily.
Sure. I think the biggest takeaway that I'd want to emphasize about DocMaps and about knowledge features is this idea that, right, our largely interest is that we want to support publishing research scholarship broadly. And so whether that is, whether you work on PubPub and you're publishing materials there, whether that you're working with DocMaps and it's a way to share different platforms, whether that is you're just operating within preprint peer review or publishing generally, our interest is helping scholarship thrive. And so making sure there are ways and pathways to making open research and open science happen is the most important part and the most exciting part for me.
Definitely. Dawit, how about from you?
Yeah, so since we have Joe here, who's been very instrumental in just kind of getting us all together, I want to quote a little bit of what she has going on with the PhD career stories, because I feel like it directly ties to kind of the spirit of what we're doing here with Knowledge Features Group and PubPub for sure. She says, the PhD Career Stories has a vision to create a global community of, in this case, PhDs, but bringing together nationalities, languages, cultures, and scientific disciplines. And I think for us, we want to kind of adopt that, or we absolutely feel the same way in terms of just supporting the storytelling where everyone can participate, share their journey, their experiences, so we can, as a society, learn and grow together. That's the idea behind PubPub and Knowledge Futures Group. We are providing a platform because we sincerely believe that there are so many unique communities that have essential knowledge and essential for their local communities, but also for the broader parts of the society globally. And so, we provide this infrastructure and some services to make that easier. So yes, we're happy to partner. We'd like to have more conversations, and we're grateful to be within the network of African scholars in this case to support the wonderful work that's happening.
Yeah, wow. Powerful stuff, powerful stuff. Yes, thank you very much, Chill, for sharing all the resources Ebuka as well, for sharing all the resources in the chat. I think in the interest of time as well, we can wind the webinar up here. So the recording will be made available on our YouTube channels and also on the Africa Archive website, and you can access it there. A huge thank you to Dawit and Emily for making time for this webinar and presenting to us doc maps and helping us to understand a little more. I believe we have learned a lot. Let's share the webinar in our networks, and also let's make sure to attend the rest of the webinar series. You can find more information about that on the Africa Archive website as well. And yes, thank you very much, everyone. And yes, have a great evening. Thank you, guys.